So today I wanted to talk about mental health and one of the biggest issues that I see in the community, identity. I started my career as a SOD in a special forces group before I went to selection and became a tier 1 operator for almost 8 years, and then I left to become a helicopter pilot. One of the most dangerous things you can do in your life is tying your identity to what you do, your job, your profession, your success, your performance, your status, because eventually something will change. Careers end, businesses fail, you leave the military, you retire, you get injured, you make mistakes. And if your identity is built on what you do, when that changes, it does not feel like you just lost something. It can feel like you lost yourself. Today, I want to talk about the danger of tying your identity to what you do and what almost happened to me when I fell into that trap, and why we should instead be trying to tie our identity to our character. Because we do this in all different ways. Some people tie their identity to their profession. I'm a soldier, I'm an entrepreneur, I'm an athlete. Others tie their identity to success. I'm successful, I'm a high performer, I'm somebody who wins. Some tie it to money, some tie it to status, some tie it to relationships. The problem is not caring about these things. The problem is when they become who you are. Because when they change, and they will, it does not just feel like you lost something. It feels like you lost yourself. This is especially powerful in the military. It becomes your lifestyle, your identity, your tribe. And then there is the brotherhood, especially in combat. When you train, you deploy, and you operate beside people who would die for you, and you who would do the same for them, that bond is not normal. That bond is forged in fire. It's forged in that hardship, that shared risk, that shared responsibility. Very few people outside of that environment will never fully, truly understand that type of bond. And the truth is, you can never truly recreate that intensity outside of it. You can build meaningful friendships. You can build community. But that specific shared hardship under the pressure of life and death is rare. So when you leave, you're not just leaving a profession. You are leaving something that shaped who you became. And that loss can feel like grief. But this is not just a military problem. It happens to anybody who ties their identity to what they do. For me, this didn't even happen when I left the military. It actually happened 6 years prior to my retirement. It happened while I was in flight school. Because if I'm being honest, I tied my identity to several things. I tied my identity to being a tier 1 operator. I tied my identity to my success in real estate. And I had even tied my identity to my future in aviation as a pilot. Those were not just things I did. They were how I saw myself. But then things started to shift. I had left special operations and I was no longer a tier 1 operator. My real estate business started struggling because of COVID. While I was in flight school, my aviation career was in jeopardy. All three of these things that I tied my identity to were no longer true. It feels like you're losing yourself. To make matters worse, during all this, I lost my father and my sister within a year of each other. Everything I had built my identity on was collapsing around me. And all while, at the same time, I was dealing with grief. And my spiral got darker than I could ever have imagined. There was a period during this time that I came very close to ending my own life. Not because I lacked discipline, not because I lacked resilience, but because I had built my identity on these external things. And those things were collapsing all at once. Because careers fluctuate. Businesses fail and roles change. And if your identity is tied to those things, eventually something will disappear. And if enough of those disappear at once, it can feel like everything is collapsing. And that is the danger of tying your identity to what you do. And failure is not the opposite of success. Failure is a part of becoming successful. But if your identity is tied to success, failure can feel catastrophic. So I had to stop asking, what do I do? What have I achieved? And how successful am I? And start asking the questions. Who am I? Not based on what I do, but based on my character. And this brought me to one of the biggest turning points in my life, which was learning how to embrace failure instead of fearing it. Because when I embraced my failures, I started to see them differently. Failure was not the end. Failure was not identity death. Failure became growth. Every setback forced me to be more resilient. Every challenge strengthened my discipline. Every failure built humility. And then something else happened. Hitting rock bottom helped me to shed the ego and the pride that had kept me from accepting my new reality. Because when everything was stripped away, I didn't have titles to hide behind anymore. I no longer had success to lean on. I no longer had identity built on what I had done. Hitting rock bottom gave me the humility I needed to start over. It allowed me to begin again, not as the man I thought I was, but as the man I always wanted to become. And in many ways, hitting rock bottom was not the end. It was the beginning. It gave me the humility I needed to become the man I'd always dreamed of becoming. And when your identity is tied to your character, failure stops being something that you fear. It becomes something that shapes you into a stronger, more resilient person. And that shift changed everything for me. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Your job is outside events. Your success is outside events. Your money is outside events. Your reputation is outside events. But there are things that live within you. Your intelligence, your knowledge, your wisdom, your experience, your character, your mind. Because no matter what, your character and your mind can never be taken away from you. Because your character is portable. Your character is durable. Because when you tie your identity to your character, your purpose becomes bigger than your profession. The lessons you learned in the military, in business, in failure, they do not end when the job ends. Leadership, resilience, discipline, service. You can take those with you. You can take those anywhere. You may never be able to replicate that exact brotherhood, but you can still serve. You can mentor others. You can help people struggling. You can lead in your community. You can raise strong families. You can make the world better than how you found it. That purpose does not depend on your profession. It depends on your character, your wisdom, and all the experiences that you've gained throughout your life. If everything you do and every title you've ever attained disappeared tomorrow, would you still know who you are? The uniform, your career, your success are just chapters in your life. They shape you, but they are not who you are. Embrace failure, embrace change, embrace resiliency. Build your knowledge, build your wisdom, build your infallible character. Because professions change, success fluctuates, life evolves. But who you are will always remain, and no one, not even life itself, can take that away from you. Because you need to remember that everything in life will one day end, including your own. And when you die, no one will really care what your job was. They will remember who you were as a person, and they will remember what you stood for, because that is real legacy. And that is the kind of legacy that echoes through time.